whether or not there is something that the president could do to start to turn this off.
Well, the president could try to go back on his rhetoric that he's already used, but I don't think that that would be effective. That would literally alienate his entire base. I'm not sure whether he can turn it off. It may take something along the lines of the FBI director or governors or state homeland security directors and local chiefs of police to say, we are now targeting you. You are now at the top of our threat matrix, and anyone who thinks that you're going to take a gun, make a marathon trip, go on a mission from God and come into our jurisdiction, we will get you, we will hunt you, we will kill you, and your mission will be a failure. You have to understand something. When Timothy McVeigh blew up the Oklahoma City building, I met the state trooper who caught him, and he said Timothy McVeigh seemed to think that the trooper was on his side, which is why he was almost smiling when he said, yeah, I have a gun. And the trooper took him at gunpoint. These people think that the big system, National Guard, the police, the military, even Donald Trump has said that, right? That, the military is on his side. They think that this is a support system which allows them to go forward and be the man that steps up and kills these people. That is where they have to be proven wrong. This is why they must fear law enforcement, because right now they think, well, when this is over and done with, that entire system really actually agrees with me. Someone has to take the point, whether it's Director of Homeland Security, whether it's the FBI director, but someone must come out and say, we will stop you.
And one of the challenges that we spoke earlier with Frank Figliuzzi about, and you can comment on this as well, is that the federal government is not at this moment sort of equipped to treat we've known since, Mother Emanuel that there is white nationalist domestic terrorism afoot in this country, but they're not really set up for it. So this, this screed goes up. And so law enforcement did see it in advance. They tried to act as quickly as possible. But with foreign, with international terrorism, there is a system set up to try to intercept it. Do we need to change our laws in the way that federal law enforcement's left?
Well, right off the bat, yes. And I think the Congress needs to take up right away a series of domestic terrorism laws. And it'd be very simple. Just match them to the words international terrorism, so that a member of Al-Qaeda and a member of a white nationalist terrorist cell or a militia that thinks they're going to carry out acts of terrorism are equal all the way around. Right now, there are no laws called domestic terrorism law. They get you for firearms violations, they get you for hate crimes, but you are not treated as a terrorist. This act in El Paso was clearly, by all definitions, a terrorist attack in the United States. But because by nature of the person being white and American, he can't be treated like a member of ISIS or Al-Qaeda. He can't even be detained. He can only be treated as a murderer, right? But he's a murderer with a political intent who is spreading an ideology. So Congress should take that up immediately, and then see if the White House won't sign that legislation. Yeah. That will be very revealing.
And Heidi, you've been studying this for a very long time, hate groups and the existence of hate in the United States. Give us sort of a range of just how far gone this has gotten. Is this significantly worse than we've seen in the past? Because, of course, you just heard Timothy McVeigh mentioned by Malcolm. It's happened before. How, in your view, just looking at the data, how bad is it?
Well, we have several things that show that the situation is worse today than it was at the time of McVeigh's attack. First of all, these attacks are happening more frequently. Obviously, in Oklahoma City, over 180 people were killed, but we have shootings now regularly that are in the dozens of people killed, not just here in the U.S., but around the world. The number of hate groups is up about 30% in the last 4 years in the United States. The numbers of hate crimes are up at the same level. And we have this kind of white supremacist propaganda spreading in ways that we could have never anticipated in the past. I mean, some hate sites have 450 to 500,000 unique page views a day. So we're exposing thousands and thousands and thousands of young white men to this stuff. And as a result of that, because the whole point of white supremacist propaganda is to make you think that white people are somehow being genocide, being replaced, and that the only way to stop this is through violent means. And some people, like happened in El Paso, are picking up that message and running with it.
And can you connect the increase in white nationalist ideation and action on it to something? What has changed to make it go up?
Well, that exact time period I'm talking about, the last 3 to 4 years, ties almost directly to the rise of Trump, his campaign, and what he did from the first day that he appeared on that escalator in Trump Plaza in New York and attacked Mexicans as rapists, is that he enlivened these people and justified their thinking. And so every single year we see more and more of these kinds of extremists coming up in the United States, more emboldened, their numbers growing. So there's a tie directly here to the political system. And if we want to tamp this down, in many ways, this is the responsibility of the GOP and Trump. They need to put a stop to the legitimizing rhetoric that's coming out of the White House that is causing these groups to grow.
And Frank, let me ask you really quickly. I'm going to come back to you in a second, Malcolm. Given that, and given that the head of the federal government is the person that Heidi just named, right, as the person whose rise was kind of connected to this, what can federal law enforcement do? There's no way for federal law enforcement to make the president change his rhetoric or change his idea. So what can they do?
This has to come from the top. And yes, pressure can be applied, but look, we've got a president who doesn't necessarily get his daily intelligence briefing, ignores intelligence, doesn't get briefed regularly from the FBI director, and then it trickles down to the Hill. We're hearing that even the House and Senate intelligence committees aren't getting the normal briefings from the FBI on developments in national security cases. The culture has to change, and the pressure has to be applied heavily in order to do that. I heard Malcolm say, and I agree, that a strong statement needs to come out from law enforcement. We're and put people on notice. We're on to you. We're going to get there. But the reality is that the legislation and investigative tools are not yet there. And if people hear that if these bad guys hear, well, the FBI is coming after me, they'll take that as a challenge. And so they need to hear the recruiter in chief, the radicalizer in chief, come out and condemn them in order to break that chain of radicalization. And the world will be watching this. And if it doesn't happen soon, I fear we're going to be on next weekend talking about the very next shooting.
Malcolm?
Well, let me put this in a context that a lot of the viewers might be able to understand. If this was a member of ISIS, right, we would have called this a light infantry weapons terrorist attack. Most of these attacks are suicide attacks. This one particular shooter didn't go down in guns. And I tell law enforcement, when I train here in New York State, I tell them the people that are going to go to guns with you, who are going to have a duel with you, are going to be these white supremacist shooters. It's not going to be a member of ISIS, right? They're going to carry out their attack, and boom, that's the end of it. This was a suicide infantry weapons attack the United States had yesterday, and we need to view all of these people, for the most part, as suicide terrorists.